Hi, welcome to Just Off the Highway. I'm Al Proges. From late 2019, the world was rocked by a pandemic, which many of us experienced as a sense of frustration and helplessness. And it showed me quite an unflattering reflection of myself, what I value, how I react in extreme circumstances. Look, sometimes I rose to the challenge, but other times, well, I'm kind of disappointed in myself for how little resilience I showed. And I've been thinking about that because I've been invited to visit a place that is, in fact, the embodiment of resilience, the Children's Memorial Institute in Braamfontein, Johannesburg. It was envisaged during another pandemic, the 1919 Spanish flu, that swept the world immediately after the First Great War tore everything apart. It was originally named the Transvaal Memorial Hospital for Children, and it opened in 1923, over 100 years ago, and today it still functions as a center providing specialized services for the most needy kids. And I have got permission to show us around. This is part one of a two-part episode, and we've got a lot to get through. But hang on, before we go in, you're going to see a 100-year-old building, and there are other more sleek places, but sometimes they're short on soul, as if they haven't really developed their authentic voice yet. But this place is filled with stories. It creaks, but it speaks. In 1919, the Johannesburg branch of the National Council of Women started all of this when they decided to take action. I mean, it's like a handful of people making a difference. And when the money ran out, they raised more from individuals and organizations. They drove the project with relentless energy. And so their pictures and those of other notable people from the early days of the hospital are here in the library. And yet, as amazing as they were, this place is not a memorial to them. This hospital was built as a gesture of gratitude for the end of the First World War, and this hall is in memory of the people of the Transvaal who had given their lives. This is the area near the original entrance, where the names of the fallen are inscribed. Each name was once somebody's fine son, somebody's precious daughter, not much more than a child themselves. It's hard to imagine grief on this scale, and yet the response was to build a symbol of optimism, of healing and hope, a hospital for children. The history of this building is so complex that I'm only really able to show you glimpses. And if some parts of the building look worn, that's the point I'm trying to make. The staff that work here are fighting for the lives of kids from some of the most challenging circumstances. They have limited time for cosmetics, like this floor that has suffered from a century's worth of traffic. Come on, let's go outside to the original entrance. This is the original main entrance, and up there is the symbol of the hospital. It's called a tondo, and there are two of them. And that kind of symbol dates back 600 years to the Italian Renaissance. At the Hospital of the Innocents in Florence, they were used to designate a place where unwanted babies could be dropped off anonymously and cared for. And even today, they still hold out their arms to show that children are treated here. And over there, that's the plaque of Johannesburg heritage. But who even notices or cares? and still the CMI soldiers on. Children matter here.
We now interrupt this episode with some noteworthy information.
Braamfontein has never been the easiest part of the city. Historical entrance, historical bullet holes. At least I hope they're historical. When the hospital opened in 1923, there were 112 beds for child patients, plus accommodation for residents and a nurse's home. This is a little museum, a window into the past. This is what wards would have looked like in that period. And it's all part of the work done here by Natalie De Silva of the Genealogical Society of South Africa.
We started with the archives here. So we created an inventory, all the records, and we started to film the birth registers of some of the registers that we have here at the hospital. And they date from 1904 to 1956, but we have digitized the ones up until 1922. That's how we got involved. And initially, we were just going to do the digitizing. But as we spent more time here, we got involved in more and more and more. Anybody walking past this little window to the past, we want them to have a look in and see what it was like in those days. It's just a glimpse into what life was like. I mean, the metal cot, it's outrageous. You know, children have walked past and said, "Why is the baby in a cage?" And then you have to explain to them that there was no plastic, there was no rubber in that era. So we've done it as closely to that time as we can. The reason why the CMI is worth preserving is because it has such drive toward childcare. It's the sole reason why people come to work every day. In the old days, historically, it was only European children that were cared for at this hospital, but that has long since changed. We are so diverse, and it goes from hearing, dentistry, the mind, developmental issues that children have. Every single base is covered, and that's the reason why it is so important. If I tell you about one thing that we've preserved or going to preserve, is the toilet. I know it sounds bizarre, but we found an old toilet, the old one with the raised cistern and the flush pulling chain. It's definitely my favorite.
I want to show you upstairs, but as we go up, have a look at these strange cage-like inserts between the stairs. Now, they're not going to win any beauty contests, but it's more proof of care for kids. You see, these were put up decades ago to prevent small children falling between flights of stairs. It's ingenious. This is the residence balcony above the old main entrance. Over the decades, students and doctors carved their names into the stone. Many of them went on to become famous for their treatments that revolutionized children's medicine. But in the early days, doctors had limited means at their disposal to heal the sick. Sometimes the best treatment was sunlight and fresh air. This is the solarium deck for children who were beyond the reach of other remedies that were available in the early 20th century. I'm kind of overwhelmed by the sheer determination of this place to keep on existing. and I've only begun to touch on some of the fascinating heritage of this building. But for now, I've run out of time, so I hope you'll join me for a part 2. I want to show you how these old wards and corridors have been transformed into vibrant, functioning spaces for today. If any building can claim a living legacy, this is it. And then for a twist of the macabre, I'll take you to some creepy places in this building that generations of hospital staff have sworn are haunted by the ghost of a notorious murderer. In the meantime, folks, you know the drill. Please, Just Off the Highway really needs you. Subscribe, please become a member or a supporter on buymeacoffee.com/lproges, or just click the thanks button below this video. Stay healthy. Cheers.